Today, we're taking a hard look at a critical breakdown in the very systems that are supposed to protect the most vulnerable. We're asking, what happens when justice is delayed, and how are the courts starting to fight back?
And it all starts with this single, heartbreaking sentence from a mother. It just cuts right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? It frames this whole story not just as a crime, but as a tragedy that could have been prevented.
So to really get our heads around the bigger picture, we have to start with one specific devastating event that unfolded in Uttar Pradesh.
In October of 2023, a truly grim discovery was made in a sugarcane field in Lakhimpur Kheri, the body of a 13-year-old girl. And this moment, it just brought a community's worst fears to life and started raising some really urgent questions.
So let's break down what happened. The young girl goes missing on her way home. The family says they went straight to the police to report her missing, but, and this is the crucial part, they allege the police didn't register their complaint. It was only after her body was found, and the details are horrific, that an official investigation finally began against unidentified persons.
And here's where the story gets even more chilling. As awful as this was, it wasn't a one-off. It was part of a terrifying pattern.
Just look at this timeline. In the weeks leading up to this case, in the very same district, 3 other young girls were violently killed. We're talking about a crisis unfolding in plain sight. In that context, it makes the family's claim of police inaction feel so much heavier.
And this brings us to the real theme of our explainer today. Because this experience, this feeling that the family had, well, it points to a problem that has a name. A problem the courts themselves are now having to confront head-on: police apathy.
You see, what that grieving mother in Lakhimpur Kheri felt isn't just a personal tragedy. It's a critique of the system that is now being echoed and really validated within India's own high courts.
So what is police apathy exactly? Well, this isn't just some casual phrase. The Allahabad High Court has actually defined it as a specific failure of duty. A lack of concern from police, particularly when people, especially children, go missing.
And the court gets right to the why. Why does this happen? Their diagnosis is pretty stark. It's a lack of accountability. They're basically saying that when there are no real personal consequences for an officer who doesn't act, a missing person case can tragically escalate into a murder. But the court doesn't just stop at diagnosing the problem. They propose a pretty bold solution. They're suggesting that if inaction leads to a death, the buck should stop at the top. The responsibility should fall directly on the senior police leadership in that area. It's a clear call for top-down accountability.
Okay, the court's words are powerful, for sure. But it's when you look at the national data that you see the true, staggering scale of the crisis this apathy is fueling.
Get this. Between 2017 and 2019, the number of pending police investigations for cases under the POCSO Act, that's the Protection of Children from Sexual Offenses Act, shot up by 44%. That's a massive, growing backlog right at the very first step of the justice system.
And if you want to know where the problem is most severe, well, just look at this. Remember our story started in Uttar Pradesh? By mid-2019, that state alone had over 160,000 POCSO cases just sitting there, waiting for trial. It absolutely dwarfs every other state on this chart. The scale is just mind-boggling.
So, we have a huge bottleneck at the police investigation stage. But what happens to the cases that do manage to get through? Well, they run into another wall, an overwhelmed court system.
This simple chart tells such a powerful story. In 2019, nearly 89% of PSO cases were still waiting for trial to even be completed. That means for every 10 cases, almost 9 were stuck in limbo. The whole system is just log-jammed.
And this table right here, it shows you how the problem is actually speeding up. Look at the total cases for trial column. It's jumping by tens of thousands every year. Now look at trials completed. Yeah, it's going up, but at a snail's pace in comparison. The gap between new cases and resolved cases is getting wider and wider.
Okay, the evidence is pretty clear. From the local police station all the way to the courtroom, the system is struggling. It's failing. So what's the path forward? How do we actually find accountability and start to fix this?
Well, experts have laid out a pretty clear roadmap. It starts with creating special, properly equipped police units that focus on compassionate policing. Actually treating victims with sensitivity. And it has to extend to the courts, with a demand for more special courts designed to just power through that massive backlog we just saw.
And this brings us right back to our central question.
From a mother's desperate cry for help in a small village to a high court's demand for sweeping reform, it all comes down to accountability. This isn't just about punishing one crime anymore. It's about fixing the deep, systemic failures that allow these tragedies to happen in the first place. So what does that accountability truly look like? That's the question we're all left with.